Sounds great. Hey, everybody. Trying to get my focus on. There we go. Hey, Todd, Robert, Coach Bunch. How are you? While we're letting people
Hello.
file in, everybody shows up like they have to get from their last meeting. They may have to run get a cup of tea, have a bathroom break. They'll all be here in the next minute. Will you please use the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from? Our all-time record was, I believe we had six of seven continents. So I still someday hope to have someone tune in from Antarctica. We got Vancouver, Seattle, Susanna from Philly, Angel from New York City. Hi, Julie from Wichita, Lubbock, just across the state, Montana. So far, we're pretty much US and Canada. Oh, we got Ireland. Welcome, Martina. What time is it where you are?
There was someone from Colombia that put in the chat.
There we go. Love it. We got South America represented. There we go. Monique, welcome. I'm going to guess SF is San Francisco. Cool. All right. I love it. Just going to scan a few more. Ashton,
London.
hello. Memphis, Tennessee is my hometown. Oh, we got Venezuela. Excellent. All right. This is exciting. I love it. I'm really excited about this week's program. We've been talking about this for over a year. Like, wouldn't it be great if we could get someone who's an expert on all things ADHD, who also understands the one thing at a deep level, and kind of talk about strategies and tactics for how we can, take advantage of ADHD to get more productivity done? Like, what are the strategies? What are the hacks? What can we do to get more done if we have ADHD? My wife says I'm in the spectrum. I tend to be hyper focused, is my perception, but maybe I manage it with different things I'm not aware of. But I am raising two Texans in my family, and we have basically a car payment every month for their ADHD medicine. So I am here as a student and an instructor and excited to learn, hopefully, as much as you are. If you are a part of our ADHD community, would you just type yes in the comments? Because I know that's like 3,000 strong. Boom, boom, boom. Well, welcome. Y'all know Tyler. Y'all didn't need any introduction. I love that. That's exciting. What I love is how many people I know who have ADHD who are succeeding at an extraordinary level. I don't think it's something, a condition or anything like that, especially as a parent of two children. I think it's a gift. We just have to learn how to harness it. So, we're going to dive in. Let me start sharing my screen. And I'm never going to assume that everybody here has read the one thing. It is not homework, but we will do a real quick recap of the big ideas about the one thing, maybe 3 or 4, 5 minutes long. And then I'm going to bring Tyler on and we're going to go through 5 strategies for us to harness their superpowers with the one thing. All right. So I'm going to move fast, but I'm going to keep an eye on Kim. I see Kim Zerhoff, who is our director of growth. If I miss a question in the comments, can I please get you to signal to me that, hey, Jay, stop. We need to go back. You're moving too fast. That work? Okay, I got the thumbs up. I can see you on my screen. All right. So, overview. When we talk about the one thing approach, we think about it basically being 5 steps. We organize the book around 3 principles: purpose, priority, and productivity. But when you're trying to live it, we added a couple of steps. This is how we do our coaching and our training. We cast a vision. Where am I going? Who do I ultimately want to be as a business person, as a human being? You name it. Based on that, what should my priorities be? Step number two, to get that there faster, to get there more assuredly. Step three, now that I know where I'm going and what the priorities are, I need a plan. And we have two great ways to make plans. We have a GPS business plan and we have a 411. In other sessions, we'll go deep in those, but they may come up. And if they do, Kim, Tyler, hold me accountable and say, Jay, what's a GPS anyway? I don't want to assume that everybody knows that that's a one-page business plan. Take action. Once you know where you're going, what your priorities are, and you have a plan of action, you have to take action. And then we have to evaluate results. And that last step is often where the coaches can really help us out. I've had the benefit of having coaches for the last 15 years, and I'm going through, I think that my vision's sure. I think my priorities are on track. I'm pretty good at planning. I take action very regularly. I'm evaluating my results. It's like that little step. Does my vision need to be adjusted based on what I'm actually doing and accomplishing? Or do my actions need to be adjusted to get me there faster? And so that's our process, and it's a wheel. And every time you go around it, it gets faster like a flywheel and harder to stop. The longer you live this process, I believe the more momentum you get. IC Tech, a new startup company. You're just going to have to jump in there, Kim. I don't know out of context if I need to address that or not. The 80-20. This is the presiding principle. When people say, like, how do we know what the one thing is? We use Pareto's principle. Very simply, it says the minority of what we will get, our accomplishments, our results will come, the majority of what we get will come from the minority of what we do. Said it right the third time. So not everything counts equally. What are the things that matter most in the goal pursuit that I'm doing? And we just take that to an extreme. Of all the things that I could do, what's the one thing that would be the biggest lever in my life to make that thing happen? We call that process extreme Pareto. If you had 25 things on your to-do list and you say, what's the 20% that matters here? You get a list of five. We take it an extra step. What's the 20% of the 20%? Guess what? Pretty quickly, you get to the one thing that matters most. That's how it works. That's how we get there. We can brainstorm all the things, identify the few that matter, and then we place a bet. What is the thing that matters most of all? And then we really try to focus on that thing. The fast way to get there is called the focusing question. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? When we were writing the book for 4.5 years, I wasn't a coach at that time. I hadn't experienced coaching. I was afraid people would ask the question and not know their answer. Now I can tell you, 11 plus years into this journey, most people, when they ask that particular question, can arrive very confidently at their answer. We're just too busy to stop and ask it. If we just asked the question and gave ourselves time to think of the answer, we'd stay on track so much more. And the final step before we get into our guest speaker is, where does the rubber hit the road? I know exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, my one thing to achieve my goal. When we put it on our calendar, we call that time blocking, making an appointment with ourselves to do our most important work. The likelihood that we accomplish what we want to do goes up from about 35% to 90%, folks. It's 3 times more likely. Oops, excuse me. It makes you 3 times more likely to accomplish your goals. The simple act of putting it on your calendar. You've navigated your time. I know I need to do it. When do I need to do it? And almost everything in our lives is set up to support this. I would bet money that almost everybody here has a smartphone. And that smartphone has at least one set of notifications on it. And that notification is tied to your calendar. 15 minutes before the end of this hour, everybody's phones are going to vibrate. They're going to get a notification. They might even get a little ping that's going to tell them, hey, 15 minutes from now, you need to shift your focus to the next thing that you have on your calendar. Those little notifications are designed to help us track to the next thing. And once we get it on our calendar, the likelihood goes way up. So, Andrea, if you'll spotlight Tyler, it's time to bring him in. Tyler, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right. What was my time there? I know I'm under 10 minutes from the start, maybe 7 minutes for that
It's
quick
it's
rundown.
good. So with ADHD, you process really fast. And so actually when I do presentations for people with ADHD, I talk faster because otherwise it's too slow because our brain moves so fast. So we're good.
Good. We're good. So for
Perfect.
the rest of the people who are watching this, watch it on half speed and we'll just go at 2x.
Yeah. Yeah.
All
Exactly.
right. I love it. Tyler, I know you like for as long as I've known you, you've been an advocate of the one thing. You've also been a coach, an executive level coach for 7+ years. And most recently, you have started this ADHD community for people in sales and in real estate, and it's just blown up. Like you were kind enough to invite me, whether you knew I had ADHD or not. I think you knew that my
Yes.
kids do. And I
Yes.
just go on there and I'm like, wow, look at all this engagement. People are going crazy for this content. So kudos to you for creating such a valuable resource.
Thank you. Well, I mean, kudos back. I appreciate that. I received that. And there's so many people in the community that are so incredible in inviting others and caring about each other. And somebody comes in for help or an idea and everybody jumps on there. It's like a safe space. And that's the community that created that. So yeah, I feel blessed, and I see a lot of familiar faces on here too. And I see a bunch of comments. We'll get the links out. I'll make sure they go to Jay, so anybody wants to join, they can.
Yeah, if someone in the community are there requirements to be in the community? That would be the thing I would ask.
There's not, and we've got a couple options. I have one that's real estate related. We are going to be launching a non real estate related one early next year. So I'll give all the goal is to help as many people as possible and make it as accessible as possible. So if there's a need, we will figure it out and we will create that for you because I mean even one person matters, you know.
I love it. I love it. So Brittany
Yeah.
did a kind thing she posted it in the group. So if you're really interested, go click on that link,
Mhm.
but don't go to Facebook right now. Come back to us. But if you want to save the link, that's great. We'll also follow up. My accountability partners, Andrea and Kim, if you'll please help me for the follow-up email, and we can post it to our Facebook group as well. So Tyler, when did you first discover that you had ADHD?
I got kind of a diagnosis when I was in like 22 or something, and I thought it was only about not being able to focus. Right,
Right.
there wasn't education out there. I tried one medicine, I didn't like it, and so I just forgot about it until it got in the way of me doing my job, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and then really took it seriously.
Okay. And your journey is like, did you just self-educate on the best practices? Did you have a mentor for the journey?
What's hilarious is 10 minutes before this, I got an email from my past ADHD coach who's on your mailing list who said, "Oh my gosh, this is huge." So shout out to Rudy because he's on the call. So I definitely had help with Rudy, an ADHD coach here, and a lot of other people. I mean, my whole career, everything I've done, ran a real estate team, co-ran in the top 100 in the world for KW. I mean, all of that's other people, and so absolutely, that's why I'm here.
Is your coach Ruby Laura?
Rudy.
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 Okay. I just
Yeah.
saw someone joining called
Yeah.
Ruby Laura. I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow. Okay. We have to thank him again. They missed it, but
Yeah.
he's great. All right. So I'm going to share my screen. And for those of you like me who may not be as deep into this as you have been, I'm going to ask you to really quickly help us understand the difference between the ADHD brain and the non-ADHD brain. That's a good place to start, right?
That's great. That's a great place to start.
All right,
Yeah.
there we go. Walk
Yeah.
us through it, Tyler. And if I hear something that I feel like I need to flag and get you to go deeper, I will advocate for the audience. And the rest of you just throw your questions in the comments.
So this is really important because there's a lot of stigma around ADHD, right? You think of like the little boy that can't sit still in school, and yet there's actually multiple types of ADHD, and so there's three types. So I'll mention that quick, and then we're going to talk about what that actually means for your brain because they're different. So the first type is that hyperactive type where you're restless, can't sit still, impatient, tapping your toe, kind of always this motor that doesn't stop, right? And that's more visual. You can see that. And then you have what's called the inattentive type. And this is more often diagnosed or not diagnosed, undiagnosed in women, and take all of that outside busy energy where the body's calm, but the busyness is inside. So it often gets misdiagnosed as anxiety. It's like this internal chatter that doesn't quiet. You can forget things, might be less organized, have trouble gauging what time it is, that kind of stuff. And then the third type is a combo of both. And 74% roughly have both. So regardless of what type you have, your brain forms differently, and 80% of people with ADHD are undiagnosed. So there's somebody on this call that doesn't know they have it, and so we're going to talk about the tools with that. So when we look at the brain, what they show, what the studies and the experts show is the chemicals in our brain operate differently, and then there's 4 parts of the brain that actually grow differently. They might be different sizes. They might develop at a different rate. And the main thing is that we can have lower dopamine levels. Okay. And dopamine is like this fuel, right? The happiness fuel, the fuel to go, to do the thing, to execute on that task, to focus, all of these things. And we can have lower levels. Or sometimes we can have a spike where you have that, where you just lock onto something. And Jay, if you've experienced this, because you said you have ADHD, right? You forget the world, you forget what time it is, you forget to drink water.
That's a gift to me. Like I call that flow, right? I am time stops, right? They call it time blindness because I have a kid who's got extreme version of this. But like you can be hyper focused on the task once you get there. And that's when your wife is walking or your spouse is walking in the room saying my name and I'm just not hearing it. So I get in trouble sometimes if I'm in that place.
It's really finding ways to harness it is the key, because some people say it's a superpower, some people say it's a disability, and the truth, I think, is sometimes it can feel like a disability, and sometimes it's this incredible gift, and why you see so many successful people who have it. I mean, so many incredible people that change the world. And so when we look at dopamine, we're going to talk about, and that's the 5 tools. I want to talk about motivation, because I've done over 10,000 one-on-one calls with ADHD agents. I've coached some celebrities, business owners, not just in real estate. Anybody can use what we're going to talk about. Also, with ADHD, some experts, newer research is showing it might be considered what's called executive dysfunction. Executive dysfunction disorder, in a sense, which relates to how dopamine is regulated, how we organize, how we gauge time, how we prioritize things, regulating our emotions, ability to multitask, motivation. I mean, all kinds of stuff, right? And so there are also I saw your brow furrowing. Do you have
No. I want to ask a question. So I was just like, I was going to say, go finish your thought, and then I'm going to jump in.
I get excited. This is just, I'm so blessed to be here. So when we're talking about the brain and how dopamine's regulated, you can use these tools if you don't have ADHD, right? If you have PTSD, if you have OCD, if you're in recovery from substances like chronic illness, anything that depletes your dopamine. And so we're going to talk about motivation. I know you removed the slide, so I'll go back to that.
I'll go back to that in just a second. I just want to stop and ask a question. And also, we need to change it up a little bit. I get bored looking at the same thing, and your face was too small for me to see. So I've seen the brain, it's locked in my head. Yeah, we're going to go right back to it when we get back. But dopamine is one of the neurotransmitters that helps us kind of get into action and stay into action. It's like, I know that a lot of people who are addicted to their cell phones, that is a great device for making the little dopamine fire off, like reward system. I got to I got to share, whatever. So we get people with ADHD might get too much or too little. So it's kind of like the action traffic lights in our head are either sending too much traffic through the avenues or too little. Is that, am I thinking about it the right way?
It's a great way. That's a great way to put it. And sometimes it's on a delay. Is it okay to go back to the brain, and now
you just made me laugh. You're sitting at a light and you're waiting for it to turn green, and you're going, "Is this thing broken?"
That's a perfect way to put it. Yep.
I saw Mo Anderson, by the way, run a red light when that happened to her. I was like, "You ran a red light with me in the car?" She's like, "It must have been broken. It must have been broken."
Yeah. Okay. So when and that's exactly what it is. So when we're looking at the brain and the dopamine, because dopamine is responsible for doing the thing, right? We're talking about the one thing. What happens when you know your one thing, right? You know your one thing, and yet for some reason you can't do it, right? You want to do it. It's not that you don't want to do it. You literally can't. And that's the difference between procrastination and what I talked about is executive dysfunction, right? You want to do it, but you can't do it. Whereas procrastination is you don't really want to do it. You think you should, but you don't really want to do it, right? So what happens if what's happening in your brain when you know the thing you're supposed to do and you just can't? And so here is how motivation works from a neurochemical level in the brain. And so right here you have an internal or an external stimulus that's introduced, right? And I'm going to talk, this is the non-ADHD brain that I'm going to talk about first, right? Okay. So there's a stimulus, an external or internal stimulus. You want to do the thing, someone wants you to do the thing, whatever the reason is. And so the brain says, hey, let's send dopamine. If you look at these blue arrows, let's send dopamine to the frontal lobe, okay?
Right up there.
Yep. So these blue lines is dopamine. And so then when there's a surplus of dopamine in the frontal lobe, your brain says, oh, hey, go do that thing. And I'll give you more if you go do that thing. So a non-ADHD brain says, oh, okay, I'll just go do laundry because I'm going to feel good after I do it. So I'm going to get dopamine, right? And then they say, hey, why is it so hard for you to just go do laundry? Whereas a non-ADHD brain, what happens, there's an internal or external stimulus that's introduced. And then the brain says some dopamine. It doesn't send all of it, doesn't create a surplus. And then either just you can't do it, right? Or somehow you get yourself started and the brain's like, oh, sorry, here it is. So if you experience that, you're somebody that's going to relate to, well, once I get started, then I'm good. Once I get going, then I can do it. The brain's like, oh, here, sorry, here you go. So you're going to have to push yourself more than the average person. And
we
not
cover a strategy for starting in the NCUP model we're going to cover.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. That's important to me as a parent. So keep going.
Yep. And that's what we're talking about today because, and that's really the strategies because what they're showing, they did brain scans of non-ADHD versus ADHD brains, and they showed when they'd introduced certain stimulus, the non-ADHD brain would light up a certain amount of times for a certain extent, whereas a non-ADHD brain introduced to the same stimulus wouldn't light up as bright or as long, except for these things in 5 categories. So there were 5 subjects where the ADHD brain actually lit up longer and brighter than the non-ADHD brain. And this is the key, okay?
Am I moving the slide in the right order for you, man?
It's perfect. No, it's perfect. And this is what that stands for. So it's an acronym, and there's 5 things. And I didn't come up with this, by the way. This is the community, okay? And I feel blessed to present on it. So NCUP stands for interesting, new, challenging, urgent, and passion. Interesting, new, challenging, urgent, and passion. And so when they did those brain scans and it was interesting or new or challenging or urgent or passion, all of a sudden our brains lit up longer and brighter than the other person. And so when we're talking about being an entrepreneur, whatever industry you're in, this is the genius zone, right? Who wouldn't want to go longer and have even more passion and be able to go 10 times more or 5 times more than your coworkers or your whatever, not your nemesis. You probably want
the average person.
If you have a nemesis, you probably want to outperform them. But this is the genius zone, and so when working with yourself, what happens a lot of times until you understand this, and we're going to talk about each one and how to integrate it. What happens a lot of times is when clients say, I need to get motivated. Why can't I just do the thing? I need to get motivated. I need to get more disciplined. Has anybody said that before? If I could just get more disciplined, I need to get more structured. What's wrong with me? And we use pain and shame and all this stuff. And when you do that, when you talk to yourself like that, what happens to your energy? Does it go up or down?
Down.
And then you have less dopamine. It sucks. You don't feel great, right? And so the key here, instead of, is
that just self-defeating, Tyler? Like if I'm saying, man, why can't I ever start? And I have that self-talk, does it ever become painful enough to actually make you go? Or is it just kind of actually a spiral in the wrong direction?
So it depends on the person. There are some people that use pain and shame, and it can work. However, who wants to run a business where every day your main motivator is pain and shame? Like that's your life. And so maybe it's worked for you up to this point, and you can transition towards something that's better and doesn't feel like that. And that's where utilizing what we're going to talk about today is going to get you through that, where you just can't do the thing and you don't have to beat yourself up, because that shame and pain don't work. Curiosity does. Understanding why. and really being curious and removing blame and understanding yourself is what moves you forward. Shame keeps you stuck because you don't learn any information. How do you collect more data on how your brain works and how to move forward? You know, so and with ADHD, studies have shown that as an ADHD kid, especially if you're undiagnosed, which is a lot of us at that age, we get 20,000 more negative messages about our behavior by the age of 8. Think about that.
From the inside or outside or both?
Outside. This is a proven study. 20,000 more negative messages about your behavior by the age of 8 if you have ADHD. And so we already have a narrative going on as our brain's developing that, why did I forget that? Why can't I focus? Why did I make that a priority? Why can't I keep organized? All this stuff, we already have that. And then
we're going to be late for school. We're going to be late for church, right? Even if it's not you, it's we, and you know who the object is. I got it.
Yep. And we can get overstimulated or understimulated multiple times throughout the day where the lights are too bright and we hear the person mowing the lawn outside the window and we can't focus. And somebody lunch and learn, if you've ever had trouble with that, somebody's chewing right next to you, because our brain can have trouble prioritizing. We can take in all the stimulus at once versus this one's softer and this one's louder. And so when you're in school, it's hard to focus because you got somebody tapping their pen, like all this stuff, right? And then we have 10 times the amount of thoughts as someone without ADHD. That's why we process so quickly.
And how many more thoughts?
10 times the amount of thoughts as someone without ADHD. And that's from Dr. Russell Barkley. That's an incredible researcher on ADHD.
That's that speed thing. Like y'all are just noticing more things, processing more things. Move on. Wow.
Right. So we can get really overstimulated, or our brain can be understimulated, which is why we're bored. And what's happening, why we fidget, why I'm on a yoga ball so I can move if I need to. I've got fidget toys. So the hyperactivity, if you have that's a benefit. What the brain's trying to regulate. So if you're understimulated and the brain moves, it lights up that part of your brain so you can focus. When you suppress that, especially if you're a woman who didn't get diagnosed and it's not as socially acceptable, that energy has to go somewhere, and a lot of times it can turn to anxiety. So when you unmask, and which means like stopping, trying to fit in, you unmask your symptoms. Sometimes the anxiety can go away.
How do I know? Like, how do they differentiate? That might be more than we can cover today, but I do know so many people in my world who have different levels of anxiety. And is it anxiety, or is it that internal kind of hyperactivity that you talked about, that too much going on?
Yeah, I mean, it can be a mix of things. I mean, that's why it's good to, find a coach or an ADHD coach or an ADHD center or someone that can really differentiate, because we can also have anxiety and ADHD.
Okay. Go to a professional is the answer. Go to a professional.
Yeah. So just with ADHD, 2/3 of us have a co-occurring diagnosis. So depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD is pretty common, bipolar. And so, yeah, we might have a nice little collection. And so finding a professional to kind of piece out what's what and treat each thing really can make such a huge difference.
Well, let's dive into your acronym, and it starts with interesting.
Yep.
So when we want to leverage this, all right, we know that we might be undiagnosed, but something about what you've described, internal, external, maybe both, says that sounds like me. How do we use interesting to move forward and start making progress?
Yeah, this is the biggest thing. So whatever industry you're in, whatever your business is, stay in your lane, find your niche, something that's interesting to you, that piques your interest, your plan. We are curious. Albert Einstein had ADHD, is what they're saying, autism as well, very neurodivergent. And one of his best traits that he quoted was his curiosity. And we share that with ADHD. We're constantly curious and want to understand how things work. And so it's really important to choose things or align your business with things that are interesting to you. Do different ways of doing things to see if they work. Look for patterns. Follow your curiosity. And really, as I say, like, get in your lane. There's a saying, all growth begins outside your comfort zone. And what has worked really well for ADHD clients is first see what you can do within your lane or your comfort zone, how much you can maximize that before trying all these different things because you think you should, besides the thing that feels natural because it feels too easy, you
You
know?
said something in there that I want to grab onto.
Yeah.
We're largely, our audience here is adult professionals, adult entrepreneurs,
Yep.
right? So the idea of let's stay in the lane. Let's stay focused on the things that are already interesting. I know Ashley Hargrove is a productivity coach. And
Mhm.
to get people to do the things they know they need to do, but don't naturally do, she starts with what are your hobbies? What do you love to do? And
Yep.
she tries to piggyback. Well, if you already like to volunteer at the hospital, have you thought about doing this at the hospital that is business positive?
Mhm.
What about for those of us who might be an employee or maybe a student? Like I'm in English class. I don't find it interesting. You said change the frame. Is that like a trick for like I don't really have a choice, but if I change the frame, I could make it interesting?
Yeah. So let's say you're in school, and there's something that's not as interesting to you. Is there a way to find interest in it, whatever that topic is? Could you go deeper in it? Could you go for mastery? Could you like? Is there something you could find to be curious about it that can help you stay engaged? You know, if and I would say too, if you're feeling a ton of resistance around your career path, you
Might be a
can't.
sign. Okay.
If you don't like the class you're taking, if it's a one-off, you might just get some fidget toys and you know puff it out. If you are in a career and you really don't like it, then it might be good to plan a transition when you can to something that's interesting because you're going to thrive more anyways, and people are going to get more of your gifts that way.
Okay. That's great advice.
Stay in your lane, stay in your niche. Yeah.
Anything else on interesting? Does anybody have a question about this before we move to the next? Oh, look at that, Jennifer. Changing the name, the verbiage of something helps me a lot. Well, what if I think about it this way? That's how I'm interpreting it. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump to new, but if we need to
Yeah.
go back, we will save a little time at the end of this for questions where you can unmute and ask Tyler, me, unlikely me, but definitely Tyler if you've got questions. All right, we go from that new.
No, this is a big one. How many people listening have said, "Man, I need to be more consistent"? Or if you
Yeah,
haven't said, how many people have you heard say that? If I could
yeah.
just be more consistent. Okay, for us with ADHD, doing the same thing every day the exact same way, maybe you can do that. A lot of us though do well with the thing that you want to be consistent with is your goal, and how you get there can be more flexible. And so the key to our brains is we need structure, we need deadlines, we need more room to play to get there than someone else is going to need. Because if it's too rigid and too structured, a lot of us can rebel like a teenager, right? It's like I'm not going to do any of this. This is too much. I see you smiling, Jay. And so I'll give you an example on that. Time blocking. Okay, time
Yeah.
blocking is really important. I think a lot of us we all know that, right? And what can work with what I've seen work with a lot of clients is you have instead of one schedule that if you don't do it you feel bad or you grind and push yourself over and over again, you may have three options that you rotate through. And so you do one schedule and you follow that and you make sure it's in line with your goals. And then when that gets stale, instead of pushing yourself and beating yourself up, you move to schedule B and you do that. And then when that gets stale, plan C, and that gets stale, and you go back to the first one and it's still new, and you rotate. So you're still staying on instead of you fall off, you push yourself, try to get motivated, and you're in this internal struggle and you're always falling short.
All right, I want to unpack this. And just so like I'm being selfish. Like I would rather see you big on my screen than tiny because like I've already memorized the word new. I don't need to see that slider anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
once
sure.
we feel like everybody's got it, I'm going to come back to us. And that's not a signal to you to shut up or anything. But I love the idea of the thing that you said. You focus on the goal, you can change over time how you get there, right?
Mhm.
So that you're making progress while keeping it feel fresh, novel, and interesting. So my brain goes to we have a lot of folks in real estate sales here. I know that just because a lot of them show up. But if you're in sales, and I know that my one thing, my goal is to talk to this many potential customers. One day I might be like, oh, I'm going to come up with a tool text message and send it to all of them. The next day I might be, I'm going to hold an event. Or I can just start working through my phone and call. Like I could come up surely creatively with 20 different ways to make contact.
Mhm.
It's not the same little thing every single day. Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. And that's if you think, okay, I have to do it this one way, and this is the only way to be successful, the amount of ADHD entrepreneurs who feel so stifled by that, because we're really coachable, because some of us can have lower self-esteem, right? Because we were criticized so much. So
Oh,
sometimes we don't trust ourselves.
20,000 by the time you're 8. Is that what you
We're
said?
so, yeah, 20,000 negative message about our behavior by the age of 8. We're
Ugh.
so coachable where it actually harms us. So you get a coach and you think, man, I keep trying what they're saying. They're such a good coach. It's not working for me. And you keep blaming yourself. But that coach might be saying, or that thing you're reading says, you have to do it this way or you can't be successful. That's the red flag. You got to listen to that. So exactly what you said for lead generation, for example, have a list. Some people play lead generation bingo, right? And they have a bingo board that they make on Canva or some design, and then they've got to do that over 2 weeks, and they choose one, and then they do bingo or something. So the goal, like you said, the goal is making contacts and connections. How you do it doesn't matter. Switch it up. Work with your brain, because that newness can create dopamine. And oh my gosh, it's already noon, and I did what I'm supposed to do, while the other person's using the exact same script, the exact same format. They had to spend 2 hours getting ready in the morning to get motivated, this whole routine. If you have a 2 hour routine to get motivated for the day, you might look at your day because you
Right.
might,
So
yeah,
I guess the other strategy, because I took it to the actions to get the outcome, but you
yeah.
started with time blocking. To say that my one thing is to work out for 45 minutes. Could it be like, I'm not going to do it this morning. And if I have to do it in the morning or else it's not done, then I'm not doing it. Or I have choices. Well, today I'm going to do a morning workout, but tomorrow I'm going to do a noon workout.
Mhm.
The other day I'm going to do a 3 o'clock leave work and feel kind of like I'm naughty and skipping school to have a workout. And then I'm going to do a night workout. And whichever one of those combination works, it's just fine, no judgment, but it gives me some variety to keep it feeling fresh or like a choice instead of this thing that I have to do exactly this way.
100%.
Okay.
100%, because you have people that have been attempting to do a morning workout for how many years. That's the goal, and you do it sometimes and you just still don't hit it, and one day you're going to get it, but it's been 2 years of you attempting to get up at 6 a.m. That might be a signal that it's okay to be more flexible. And so they say, when you know one neurodivergent person, you know one neurodivergent person. And so one person might work out every morning, and yet the workout and the activities, they might rollerblade one day, they might walk the dogs one day. Another person is going to need a morning workout and an evening workout. Or our circadian
Okay.
rhythms are delayed by 2 hours, so we can get
I'm hearing
tired.
two things, Tyler.
Yeah. Okay.
The goal can stay the same. My
Yes.
intent can stay the same.
Mhm.
I can choose a variety of activities to get there to keep it fresh, or I can choose a variety of schedules to keep it fresh. Or crazy me, what if I do a variety of both? I can choose the time to do it, and I can choose whether I'm rollerblading or biking or rowing.
Zumba. You do Zumba?
No, I don't. I'm nodding my head. No, I don't. But yes, that would be funny. They would probably be, my wife would pay to have me do that.
Let's go. I haven't done it either. I've always wanted to. Yeah, and you're gonna figure out what works for your brain. What works for you might not work for somebody else. And yeah, as long as the workout happens, your body doesn't care what time, right? If the lead gen happens, you still have
No.
clothes.
If you
It
did the activity, the outcome is going to happen later.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, Jay and Tyler, before you move on to the next one, there's a question in the chat box that goes back to when, Tyler, you talked about how, pick a niche, stay in your lane. And there was a question in the chat box that Mark asked, what if your niche is multifaceted and parts of it can distract you?
Ooh, that's a good one. I guess I off the top of my head, to get really detailed, more context of what that means would give me a better response. And that's a really good question. So I'm going to do my best to answer that.
well, it's Mark here. If you're willing to unmute, can you tell us maybe a little bit more about it? Because I want to ask a follow-up question. What is it, your niche? So that maybe we already kind of are familiar with it, and Tyler may have experience with it.
Okay, this is Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, thank you for having the webinar. I'm a musician,
Ah,
and um, I'm writing a textbook, kind of a for dummies textbook for Gregorian chant. And as a musician, and had a fairly large family, basically as a musician, I had to do a whole gamut of different things: opera, conducting, composing, and writing, teaching. And one of my specialties is Gregorian chant. But there's certain things about putting the whole thing together where you're dealing with recordings, you're dealing with writing, you're dealing with in-class teaching, and sometimes I'll be working on one thing and all of a sudden I think of something that is related to what I'm doing, but then it's really a bigger part of something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I just, and then it just like springs my, all of a sudden my whole plan of what I was going to do for that morning goes out the window, and I start focusing on this one thing, which is important at some time in my life, but it's not important right now. It doesn't have anything to, well, it detracts from the one thing for that morning or that day or that moment.
Cool. That's great. Thank you, Mark, for sharing more. Tyler,
Brilliant.
what do you have to say?
I see a bunch of people saying yes, and so that's a brilliant question. And so one thing that's important to understand, and this a lot of our traits have a silver lining to it too. We can have also lower impulse control, and so we have 10 times the amount of thoughts, and then we're already doing the thing before we even know it, because our impulse control is I'm doing the thing. And so there's a technique called the parking lot technique. And so when you're working on something and that's your one thing, get some Post-it notes. And when you have an idea, write it on there and then stick it on your desk and have that be the parking lot of all your ideas. So Mark, if you're working on a project, you have this idea, we don't want to lose it because we also have working memory issues sometimes, right? We can forget stuff. It's, you know, it's harder for us to hold multiple things. That's where you go to do the laundry and you walk and you realize, oh man, I'm thirsty. And then you walk upstairs and you get a drink of water and you realize you didn't run the dishwasher. So you start putting a cup in and then you hear your phone ring and you go over to your phone and you realize it's not charged and you try to find your phone charger and you're out in the car finding your phone charger and you realize you didn't put the laundry in, right? So we can have working memory stuff where we go boom, boom, boom. So this parking lot technique is really, really big for us. So have that. So after you're finished with your one thing, now you go to the parking lot. And each time you do things, you get to crumple up the paper and it creates dopamine and then you knock it out. So yeah, parking lot technique is the best thing I can advise for that. And then if you have I
use that, Tyler. I just want to say, like, we use that in all of our live trainings. Mm-hmm. I do it all the time because what I know is for a lot of our audience, they're getting ideas. They're in a training room and they're like, I need to do that. I need to do that. So I always take the last page of the training. I said, whenever you have one of those moments, go to the parking lot and write down, I need to go to Tyler's ADHD community. But now you've saved it, right? Now your brain can stop working memory from trying to remember that, and you can go back to focusing on what you need to do. And I usually will then at the end prompt everyone in the class, all right, everybody go to your parking lot. Because I don't want them to forget it either. Now, what's the one thing from this list that we can put on your calendar right now so that you can go take action on it? So, like, I don't know who invented the parking lot, but it's like, but the Post-it notes, if I could, I can't show you because it's embarrassing. There's at least 30 Post-it notes attached to my monitors and my desk for the exact same reason. I have to stay focused on my work. But I've got creative ideas. I think of things that have to happen. If I get them down, my brain relaxes and I can go back to work.
Mm-hmm. And someone, and I want to talk about this. This is so important. Someone commented squirrel brain, right? And I want to bring this up because for some people, and thank you for saying that, whoever commented that, right? That's what we hear. Oh, squirrel, we're over here, we're over here. And it can have a connotation with shame in it. So when we created the groups, I never used the squirrel icon because here's the thing. We process so fast. So if you're talking to somebody and then you go off on something else, it's not because, oh, you're immature, you're going to something else. You process so fast. A lot of times we know what they're going to say when they're 3 words into a sentence. So your brain's understimulated and it's absorbing stuff so fast. So it's actually that you think really fast and the person you're talking to might not be as stimulated. So never think that you have a squirrel brain or there's some shame. No, you're brilliant. Like you think fast. It's a great thing. I just had to say that. So
you just like, one, I appreciate the heart that comes from that. We don't want to put anything out here that might induce shame. And you're very consistent about making sure we don't do that. And I thought maybe they've already anticipated that you were going to say that and are ready for us to move to point number 3. So challenging.
Right. So totally. Yeah. I'm sure there's some people. Yeah. So challenging. So this one, gamify things, right? Think big. A lot of times attempt the impossible, right? Prove it to yourself, prove it to others. Sometimes if it's not challenging enough, we can get bored. Another thing you can do is race against the clock. So one technique, if you think an activity is going to take 30 minutes, set a timer for 15 minutes and try to beat the clock. Another one, I call this the Tyler special. So I'll take my laptop to a coffee shop. I won't bring the charger, and I have to have my work done before the laptop dies.
And it's going to happen fast. It's an older laptop because otherwise, like you consume 10 cups of coffee for me. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So I've got maybe 2.5 hours to do my work or it's done. And so there's the urgency, because urgency creates dopamine.
I do a lot of times with if you have a smartwatch, I've got an Apple Watch, I'll set an 8-minute timer or a 10-minute timer. I'll look at my time and I'll just set an arbitrary countdown clock. And I'm going to say, I'm going to triage as many emails as I can. But when my watch starts vibrating, I have to move. But just that sense of I've now got a limited constraint. And that constraint means I'm competitive. You don't have to tell me or show me anybody else. I'm just going to try to do as much as I can in that time.
Yep. And then lastly, because I'll go to urgent next, because I know we want to leave time for questions. The 66-day challenge, that's something I used. 10 years ago is the first time. I think it was at least 10 years ago I did that. And I've done it a lot before. So that 66-day challenge, you can print out that sheet, post it up where people can see it, which in a way kind of takes us to urgent, because I want to talk about body doubling. So urgent, when we're thinking about that, right? With ADHD, we can see time as now or not now. And that's why that thought that comes to you feels so compelling, because it's now or not now. It's like two ways. That's Dr. Russell Barkley talks about that.
How does the non-ADHD brain process that? Is there just a much broader spectrum of maybe now, maybe later? What is it?
Let's ask your wife,
Okay.
Yeah, what they show though is that time is not seen the same way. It's almost like where people without ADHD say it's kind of a continuum, whereas we can see it like up and down. It's a different way of time. Now, the beauty of that is we forget the world exists. We can get lost in these fantasy worlds. Walt Disney had ADHD. You don't create characters like a mouse in a female mouse that wear a skirt without being able to get lost in something. So yeah, we view it very differently. Which when we're talking about urgent, which is the second to last one, deadlines are important, right? So we need structure. If there's no structure, if there's no urgency, we can actually get depressed and kind of flail a little bit. And so this is where having a coach, an accountability partner, a spouse, somebody that can just kind of check in or is watching. And then there's a technique called body doubling. So body doubling is the concept basically, like, let's say you have a closet that you haven't wanted to clean out forever, right? You want to do it and you haven't been able to. If your friend or your spouse just comes and sits with you while you do it, all of a sudden it's easier to do. Or if your kitchen is a mess and you haven't been able to clean it up and your friend says, hey, can I swing by in 15 minutes? And you're like, oh my gosh. So these dishes you thought would take 3 hours that you put off all weekend, now you can do them in 15 minutes, right? So now we've got dopamine flowing. So body doubling is somebody else is sitting there. They don't even have to be doing it with you. They're just there.
No one succeeds alone. I love that.
Yep.
My teenage son will refuse that method because it feels too much like parenting versus support. I get it, but yeah.
I would have too, probably with a parent. It's Jay Papasan, and still, that's just how kids are.
Yeah, but that's natural.
How
do we keep the urgent from being unhealthy? Because I know a lot of people use deadlines as a way to achieve focus, but it also can elevate stress. It's a great hack. That's why so many people use deadlines and they procrastinate to create that sense of urgency. And they're great at the all-nighter, but it'll wreck them for the next day. Is there a way to find a healthy balance on the deadlines and urgency without just stressing yourself out?
Yep. And that's a great point, because we are more likely to go to things that are urgent than things that really need to happen, right? That client calling and, being dramatic or whatever, we're going to want to go to that because it creates dopamine, where that thing that isn't urgent that we need to do, we're not going to do. And so being aware of how often you're doing that is important. And then, because this technique with in-cup is where you can kind of bypass the natural disposition and have more control of it. So if you know that's you, and I know a lot of people on here, we wait to the last minute. I've done it too. It's not because you're lazy or irresponsible. It's because there's no dopamine. So once you recognize these patterns, you stop shaming yourself and know what's happening. You can say, oh, I don't want to do the thing because I don't have dopamine. I know it's due in 3 days. I'm going to go for a walk and then do it. I'm going to do body doubling and do it, because we have that thought. Unless you completely forget it, we know we're supposed to do it. It's the back of our mind. We just don't do it. This is where you integrate the other techniques. So then you're not doing things last minute and feeling stress.
All right. I want to get to passion because we've got about 10 minutes left, and there are a lot of people that'll have to leave at the top of the hour. And I want to have at least a couple minutes for a couple of questions. So what can we add on passion? This has just been so great, Tyler. Just so much information.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, you can tell this is my passion, right? Because I never get tired of it. I could go for 2 more hours. I mean, I just, it's incredible. So when you find passion, something that you care about, whether that's a charity or just a hobby that you're excited about, it all of a sudden you get dopamine. So there are some entrepreneurs that just can't sell, they don't want to, they can't make themselves, it doesn't feel good. Yet when they tie it to donating back to a charity, all of a sudden they're door knocking, they're calling people, what charity you care about, all kinds of stuff, right? I'm going to donate X amount of percentage. So tie it to something you're passionate about, whether it's a special interest that gives you dopamine, whether it's like just something that's really fun, or a demographic that you want to help or make a difference with, or you just like it. You might just like that way of doing business. Lean into that. And that really totally is so important when we're looking at lead generation sources. Stop generating leads for your business in ways that aren't passionate. You're not going to be as effective. Find ways to talk about things you like. I mean, if you like mountain biking, create a community around mountain biking and get your leads from that. If you love working with foster care, go and go with all the foster care parents who are doing that and do fundraisers. I mean,
there's an agent, like if I'm telling the story right, this is secondhand from Jason Abrams. There's an agent in Las Vegas that looks a little bit like a Hell's Angel, maybe, right? So it's not, but they are into saving dogs. And so they place dogs in homes, foster, and that is their passion. And every Friday, the whole team goes and volunteers. And their whole slogan is, we don't just find homes for people. And it just, like, everybody knows who they are. Everybody knows that when I support this person, I'm saving dogs too. So guess what he gets to talk about all the time? Dogs, which he loves. And everybody who wants to do business with him wants to talk about dogs and how many of you saved this year and all the things. Like, that's, to me, that's what immediately went to my brain. It's align something he's passionate about with his business, and it's a reward system, and it naturally creates conversations that he enjoys having.
And you're going to be memorable, right? So last thing I'll say really quick about that, why it's so important. Like, let's say your favorite food's pizza, right? And I see you and I say, hey, you want to go get some pizza? Here's this restaurant that has pizza, Chinese, dessert, Tex-Mex, and they do have great spaghetti. Or here's this pizza place that has the best pizza in town. Which one are you going to want to go to? So most entrepreneurs think having all these lead sources is great. No, be known where in conversation someone mentions dogs, boom, it's you, because you might not get this much lead. So yeah, lean into your passion and be known for it.
All right, we got time for a few questions. In the meantime, I want anybody who's got a question, would you please put your question in the chat so we can pick the one that we think would serve the most. In the meantime, Kim, can I really quickly, we're launching our first group coaching program. I want to just make everybody aware. I've got the slides, so get your cameras out so you can take a quick picture of this with the QR code. Kim, can you walk us through this real quick? Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here. And so, yeah, on January 9th, we are launching our first group coaching program. This is the first program that Jay's kind of been the face of in many, many years, since 2016, 2017. And essentially what we're doing in this program is we are taking chaos and making it into clarity, and giving you a powerful momentum start into the new year. So it's 10 weeks long. So you get Jay, Jordan Freed, myself, and our other One Thing coaches that are going to be coaching you in small, intimate group cohorts, so that you can have a powerful start to 2025. So we're super excited about this.
All right, take a picture. I'm about to take it down so we can bring Tyler back. Take a picture. It'll also be in your email. I'm excited. I believe that after 11 years of teaching this book, thank you, Kim, I know the classic mistakes, and I've gotten some great new tools today from Tyler that keep people, they know what they need to do, but each year they kind of repeat the same set of mistakes. So it's like Groundhog Year, right? Man, I started out last year with all these intentions, but it didn't happen. My goal with this course is people can fill in the blank. This is the year that I finally, that thing. And in 10 weeks, we hope to at least get people launched with a great platform. All right. So,
So
Tyler,
Jay, can I interrupt?
yeah.
And so many questions are coming in the chat box, which is awesome. First thing I want to address is that the recording will be available inside of the One Thing community. We'll also be sending it out via email. Tyler, you can feel free to repost it inside of your ADHD community as well. And then also, we've got a ton of questions. So should we just fire away with some of these questions, Jay?
Yeah, let's knock it out.
Okay, so there's one that came in a long time ago and she reposted it was, how do you know if it's ADHD or your personality?
That's a great one. And I mean, I can't diagnose, right? You can self-diagnose. You can see if things resonate. And what I recommend is you can go to an ADHD center, and they're great. And so you can Google whatever the closest big city is to you and then ADHD center, and they're going to be able to really give you the best assessment if you want to get diagnosed. Now, the benefit to getting diagnosed is you have to have that if you choose medication, which can be really helpful if you go that route. And so that's what I would do. So if you're not ready to do that,
is it expensive or time consuming
it
to
can
get
be.
it done?
It can be. And if you're stuck and it helps you move forward, it's an investment to then make everything else easier. And so different ones have different costs. The reason to go to an ADHD center is especially women still get undiagnosed with ADHD. My best friend, and so you want to go with somebody because it's a newer field. And so you want to go to somebody that really will validate what you're experiencing or tell you if it's something else, but you'll know for sure instead of just being pushed aside.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tyler, what's your favorite tool? Like, what's the tool in your coaching for ADHD professionals that you find to be like the number one tool in your arsenal? I'm trying to address Jerusalem. I don't know, Zawolde, threw that question out. What would be your favorite?
Can I share a Google template and type it in the chat? Would that be okay? Okay. So I'm gonna can I have screen share? Because this is big for like 2 seconds. Is that possible?
Yes, I will have to.
Okay.
You keep trying, and Andrea might get there first.
Let me see if I can do it.
There we go.
This is my ultimate. Okay. So this is a brain dump. This is something I built. I'm going to type it in the chat if you want to use this. So just make a copy of it. So all those tasks in your head that, what do you do first? How do you prioritize? Just throw them all on this page. So go to File, make a copy, right? And that's your copy. Put all the tasks, everything that's just about your personal business, all that stuff just swirling around your head, right? And then what you can do is you can say, is it due today? If it's due tomorrow, this week, and you're just going to put a number, it's going to color code, right? So you're just going to list all the tasks one by one. This is a live document. You don't have to save. And then you can do all the tasks and pretend they're all the tasks here. And then you can number it, right? Like this. And then you can actually sort it, okay? So you can actually sort it. And so then you can say, oh, okay, I just need to do this task. Because we can see all of them at once. There's a due date here. There's a link. And then that first step, if you have trouble getting started, you could put it there. I use this every single day for all my tasks. Otherwise, they'll go a little crazy. So I just dumped that in the chat. We'll send that out as well. But there's something that I cling to every day.
Victoria says that is awesome sauce. And it might be the beginning of your $1 million app too. Awesome.
Yeah. Or make it free because that's how I am.
There we go. We go.
Yeah.
I'm seeing one more. We're down to our last 2 minutes. Have people used the Pomodoro timer and found it useful?
That's a great one. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. So the Pomodoro timer can be really helpful for people. And what that is, if you haven't heard of it, basically you're gonna work for you could work for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break, or you could take a 15-minute break. You can kind of do it what works for you. And then you can kind of alternate. So it's going to keep things fresh instead of just sitting there for hours trying to force yourself.
I remember the Pomodoro timer is like 18 minutes, but it's like a 20-minute timer. They used to have a physical timer.
A physical timer, yeah.
You could set it so you could have every hour could arbitrarily be 3 different things that you do. And one of them could be get up and move around. So you said that earlier. movement creates dopamine all by itself. So if I'm lacking dopamine, I can just get up and move, and that'll help me get into the starting gate.
Ned Hollowell talks about this actually. So balance and dopamine both will target the part of your brain that's understimulated. If you want to have a better day, get 15 minutes of some kind of movement before your day. It will actually stimulate that part of your brain that regulates with ADHD, and it will stay a lot of times throughout the day. So if you can get 15 minutes, stretch on the floor if you can't get outside. Something, when you do it, you will have an easier day.
Love it.
Stimulants do. That's what medicine does.
But you've constrained the time, so you give me a variety: stretch, run, walk, whatever. Right? What is that trick? How do I make it feel new if it has to happen around this time?
Yep.
Love it. I'm just testing whether I learned it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna post the link to the template again. Somebody missed it, so I'm gonna do that again to that brain dump spreadsheet.
And we'll save these comments, Andrea. Let's make sure we do. And we can go through there. And when we post this to our Facebook group and you do, we can also make sure that that's in the comments for folks. Tyler, I want to publicly thank you. One of the things a lot of people don't know is that you're in Asheville. You were severely impacted. Your community was severely impacted by the hurricanes. And you have been out on the streets helping people and not always even taking care of yourself. You literally saved a homeless person's life a few weeks ago. And the paramedics said, you got to go take care of yourself, man. So
Red Cross told me that.
I applaud you for always being such an amazing giver. So everybody, when we just get some hearts or some thank yous in the comments. I want to share two things. If you're still with us and you want to support the things that Tyler loves, we talked about this, but we didn't make it a big deal, but I want to do it. There are two charities that are helping people in Asheville so that Tyler could be helping us. This is called Beloved Asheville. Take a picture with your phone. It'll also be in the replay if you want to go back and get it. This is a very established charity, correct? That is helping the people who've been impacted.
They're local. So we were landlocked for over a week with all the roads. And so it's really the locals that did a lot. And that's why I got out on day 3, I think, and we're rescuing people with my truck with gas that were sleeping at gas stations. So I feel emotional. But yeah, Beloved Asheville.
You were sharing your internet and sharing your water. Like I could go on and on.
Yeah.
But this is a good local one. Like I know that we have funded KW Cares. Our charity has kind of hit everyone that they can touch. We now have an opportunity to go to some local institutions that are helping people. You also shared this community. A local person who donated, I think it's 85 acres.
85 acres because there's no land. People lost their houses. And 95% of people who lost their houses didn't have flood insurance. So this guy, what he's done, he bought 85 acres because nobody's got this. And he's getting donated campers from different states. And then they have a medical team. This guy's incredible. This is one guy.
This is important because it's getting cold where you are, right? Yeah. So people need shelter. It is in the mountains. So I love this. I will say I've looked at it and it might change soon. If it's important for you that the nonprofit be tax deductible, you need to do your due diligence. I'm not sure that this one has that status.
They just formed one actually.
Okay.
When they bought 85 acres. So this is tax deductible as well. So give what you can. Don't here's the thing with ADHD. We have so much empathy and we care so much. And I've noticed that sometimes people overextend, right? And so give what feels comfortable and share the link or something if you're not in a position to do that. I just want to, I don't know if that's, I just care, right? And I see that with a lot of ADHDers is like myself, right? We give more than we have sometimes. And,
well, you built a community that cares. So again, I wanted to do that for you because I see how much you care. You were going to do this the month that your home was nearly destroyed, and you agreed with me to move it to December so that we could have you actually in a home with electricity and not hovering over a battery-powered thing. So
I would have done it, but then the satellite internet was going in and out. Yeah,
I know. But thank you for pouring into us, everybody. We will be back third Thursday of next month at 3 p.m. And if you're in the first domino, that's happening at the same time. One of our trainers, I believe it's Mark, is going to be here teaching our free class, and everybody else who's in the first domino will see you third Thursday at 9 o'clock. Thank
Hey,
you, Tyler. Thank you, everyone,
Yeah.
for your time.
Thank you.
Kim, do you
hey
have one thing
Jay.
to add? Yeah.
Yeah, just so many questions in the chat box. Few things. They're asking if the first domino is ADHD friendly. So Jay, let's link on that, and then we'll communicate stuff back out to Tyler relative to that. And then the second question I got like 5 times is there a path to become a one thing certified coach? My answer to that right now is email me, kim@theonething.com. We do have a coach certification program that's going to be launching in 2025. And we'd be happy to put you on the waiting list for that.
The
So
first step is
tell
going to
me.
be the first step. And I talked to Tyler about this. I wanted him to be a student as well because I want him to be a one thing certified coach. We want our coaches to experience what our clients are doing. So we are inviting, this is not going to be the only cohort, but we want our coaches as a first step to go through the first domino class and then go into the final parts. So there will be at least 4 cohorts of the first domino. You will get more chances. I know it's late notice, but definitely email Kim at the one thing with the number one. And we will also, let's add it to the email when we send this out, Kim.
We'll do.
Love it. All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody. Thank
Tyler.
you for staying so
Thanks,
late. Thank you,
everybody.
Tyler.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice seeing